Welcome along to more training from the Dicker Data Training Academy. My name is Robert Crane. So again, as always, we start off with how to get in contact with Dicker if you have any questions relating to any of the products or any of the content that we have covered here, or that you may have concerning your Office 365 products. Please email microsoft.sales@dickerdata.com.au. That's always the best address to address your inquiries to. So our weekly webinars roll on. We are doing today Skype for Business. We're going to look at the Azure Open Calculator next week. Some demos and some examples on how to calculate the requirements and costings around Azure using the Open Calculator. The week after, we're going to look at managing our Office 365 identities. So that will talk about things such as cloud identities, synchronized identities, typically around something like DirSync, and also federated identities, including ADFS. Then we're into October, and we'll start with a look at administering SharePoint online. But for today, we're going to be talking about Skype for Business. So our agenda is that we'll cover some of the different plans that are available. We'll look at how to get connected and configure it up for your users. We'll also look at configuring external access, because I think that's where the major benefit is to a lot of this Skype for Business, is actually connecting with people outside your organizations. We'll talk about some client options and some exciting new features that are coming up. Hopefully we've got time to throw in a demo there that you can get a bit of an idea of what's going on in real life, and finish off with our normal best practices and takeaways. So for those of you who aren't aware, Microsoft's Link product has now become Skype for Business. So in many ways, it is simply a rebranding, a rebadging. It's not necessarily a completely new technology. So if you're familiar with Link, a lot of the Skype for Business is the same. That means that there is a Skype for Business online, and there is also a Skype for Business on-premise. So you can, for example, purchase a Skype for Business server, configure it up and connect it to your local PBX systems and provide unified communications with on-premise equipment. However, it is much easier to achieve that, obviously, using Skype for Business Online, which is what we will be focusing on here. But typically, current versions of the Link client will certainly work with Skype for Business. And again, the move forward is to rebrand the Link product into a Skype for Business. Now, the most common question you'll probably get out there from all the consumers and maybe yourself is Skype and Skype for Business the same thing? Well, in a nutshell, no, they're not. So Skype is, the consumer version of Skype is a product that Microsoft purchased. It came with its own technologies, its own configuration, its own directory of users, whereas Skype for Business has obviously come from a Link background, from a fully enterprise product. So at this stage, Skype Consumer and Skype for Business run on different technologies. There is some integration happening. Obviously, you can now use your Microsoft account to log into Skype for Business, into Consumer Skype, and you can also now connect Skype for Business to Consumer Skype. So again, they are moving closer together as Microsoft works at the back end. But think of Skype as the product, and the overall product, and Skype for Business and Consumer Skype as individual versions of that, very much along the OneDrive Consumer and the OneDrive for Business. So remember, there are major differences between Consumer Skype and Skype for Business, and we'll cover a couple of those as we go along. So there are a number of different options, as there always is in Office 365. So the starting point for Skype for Business is Plan 1. So Plan 1 gives you the basic presence and instant messaging. So this means that you can see whether users at the other end are active on their machine. Those users can then set their status to be offline, to be away, to be busy, to be do not disturb. It also supports file transfer, so you may not be aware that you can drag and drop a file into a Skype chat window, and the other person will then be asked to accept that file, and it will be sent securely point to point via the Skype client. So again, Plan 1 does include that feature. Plan 1 also includes audio, so we can obviously do voice conferencing, and we can also do high definition video. So plenty of options there with the webcam enabled that we can now get working to improve the way that we collaborate inside an organization. Now, the better option is obviously Skype Plan 2. So it includes everything that I've talked about, all the basic messaging and conferencing ability that comes with Plan 1. But it includes, for example, the ability to schedule meetings in Outlook. So when you install Skype for Business and there is Outlook on the desktop, you'll receive an additional button in the calendar option that allows you to create a Skype for Business meeting and automatically put in the correct URL, which can be then forwarded out to attendees. You'll also be able to join meetings from your desktop or from a web browser, so you don't necessarily need to have the Skype client. Most of the current web browsers support that. Versioning the ability to run a basic Skype conference or attend a basic Skype conference simply with a web browser. And it also allows you to join anonymously from a web browser if you want as well. So again, Skype for Business is generally managed and maintained using a login and password to Office 365. But if you're wanting to run a large webinar, then basically you need users to join in anonymously, and they can do that with Plan 2 and any web browser. Plan 2 gives you the ability to have a lobby, so that means that attendees are kept outside the meeting until you allow them to come into the meeting. So again, this is a Plan 2 option. This allows you obviously to get everything working in the back end before your presentation, and then you can allow people to come in directly from a lobby. You also get the ability to share your desktop and also to do things like whiteboard sharing. So hopefully we can do a bit of a demo of that, give you an idea of what the whiteboard sharing is. But for those of you who have attended previous meetings, you'll also notice that one of the abilities with Skype Plan 2 is the ability to throw up polls. So at the end of this session, I'll throw up a poll asking you to indicate which state your business is in, and you answer that, and then I can capture those and record that. So that's an example of the additional content that is added with Skype for Business Plan 2. You also get the ability to record the meetings, which we again are doing here. So if you want to record your meetings and then maybe put them up on YouTube or push them out perhaps through Office 365 video, you'll need Plan 2 to do that. So that's the meeting organizer that needs to have that ability. Attendees basically can just attend a meeting, but if you want to record it as a presenter, then you'll need to have Plan 2. And Plan 2 supports the ability to integrate third-party dialers. So in this case, as again today, we have the ability for people to dial in using a third-party conferencing tool. So very much basically along a bridge. So you can just call in and have the audio played directly to the phone. So again, Plan 2 supports the ability to integrate with third-party dialers. Now, what plans are out there? Now, there is Plan 1 and Plan 2, so you can buy just Skype for Business Plan 1 or Skype for Business Plan 2, and then you can start implementing that. So a strategy to consider may be the fact that you could start with a very low impact product like Skype for Business inside a business, get them using it, get them familiar, show them the benefits, and then as that brings results, then you can start scaling that up to include additional options like perhaps Exchange or SharePoint, OneDrive, all those sort of things can then be included. So Skype for Business is a very good starting point to get people interested in the Office 365 suite. The good thing is most suites that are part of Office 365 automatically include the Business 2 features. So if you're buying a suite or if your customers have bought a suite, then they've typically got all the features they'll need. Now, if you do want a comparison, there's a URL there that will allow you interactively to go in and look at a table and to select different plans in Office 365 and then compare the features between the others. Now, one of the other links I have in the resources is the Office 365 service descriptions, especially for Skype for Business. That should be your product Bible. So if you want to know about any individual feature within Skype for Business, I mean, what supports meeting lobby, file transfer sizes, any limits around the product, make sure that you check out the service descriptions, which should always be your Bible for all Office 365 products. So let's talk about connecting and configuring. So the first thing that you need to do, which is generally done for you when you assign a suite license to a user, is to make sure that they have a Skype for Business license assigned. So In here, I've taken a screenshot from an E3 license. You'll see that if I expand that, I have obviously Pro Plus, I have Office Online, SharePoint, and Exchange, but one of the options is Skype for Business, and you'll see that it is Plan 2. If I don't want my user to have that for some reason, maybe I'm rolling out or delaying it or scaling it up perhaps, I can uncheck that option. But as with all suite licenses, once you uncheck one of the options, you can't then go and allocate that to a user. So the suite has to be allocated to a user, and you can't pull out individual components. So the very first thing to do is to make sure that your users have been assigned a Skype for Business license. Typically this is assigned with the complete suite license, but again, make sure that that is assigned appropriately. Once you have assigned that to a user, then basically all you need to do is install the client software. Now, there is a version of Skype for Business, okay, for PC and Mac. Some of those versions, again, may support the older Link clients, a Link 2013. There is some references in the resources as to a table of what is supported by the most current versions, but there are versions for a PC and also for a Mac. There are also now clients for your mobile devices, so Windows Phone, Android, iOS also have client apps. Some of these, again, may still be branded as Link. They are being updated as we speak to be Skype for Business. So my advice is very much to go and install those on your mobile devices, connect them up, show how they work. They may not support exactly all the features, so some of the telephony features may not be enabled until you enable those options in the back end, but again, certainly is a very handy option, a great thing to show customers how connected it can be and the future of a product like this. And don't forget that you can also view it in your browser. So if you've got a modern browser, try attending a Skype for Business meeting just using a browser. So what will typically happen is that if you click on a link that is a Skype for Business meeting, it will attempt to launch in a browser, obviously, because it's a URL. If it finds a version of the Skype for Business client already on the machine, it will then launch that client and you will run with the client. If that client software is not located on the desktop, then what will happen is it will run inside a browser. So typically the options that you have available to you there. But in most cases, Office 365 users will have access to it via their Office 2013 subscription. So as you can see, with the Office Pro Plus version, you get Word, Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, and also a fully functioning Skype for Business client. So most users will typically already have the client installed on their desktop. Now, once you've got the client installed, you need to probably just double check the external communications, which we'll cover a bit how you get that in the demo. But normally this will be enabled by default. So if you go into the Skype for Business Admin Center, you go into the organization, you'll see that there is an option here called External Communications. By default, external access is enabled except for block domains. So that means your users will be able to connect to any Skype for Business user as well as any Skype consumer Skype user without having any requests. Now, if you choose to, for example, block a certain domain, so a user cannot connect to it, you will need to put that in the lower area under blocked domains. Now, you can change that external communications if you want. You can turn it off completely, so no users can communicate with anybody outside their organization. And you can also set it up so that only approved domains are supported. So if you want the users or the customers to only communicate with a certain range of domains, you again need to put that in the list below so that they can be enabled to do that. Now, if you make changes to this external access option, beware that it may take 15 minutes or so for that to flow through the organization for those changes to be enabled, because obviously there needs to be changes to firewalls and routing rules and those sort of things as well. The second option is public IM connectivity. So in essence, this means whether your users are allowed to connect to consumer Skype. So Skype for Business can now connect to consumer Skype, and you may not want that, or customers may not want that inside their organization. You can disable that across the organization simply by checking that option. Now, one of the other options you have as an administrator is you can go in and configure the access and the properties for each individual user if you so choose. So this external communications, for example, applies across your organization, whereas you can, if you want, and hopefully we can show that in the demo, you can go in and configure and manage individual users. So maybe there's a group who has full access. Some users may be allowed dial-in access, dial-in conferencing access. Other users may not be allowed to use video, for example. So you can control that on a per user basis if you want. Okay, so your client options here are that once you have all of that set up, your clients can then connect to their internal Skype for Business users. So these are typically users within the same domain as you have. So that means that they can work with their colleagues, they can work with people within their organizations and share information. By default, they'll also be able to connect to external Skype for Business users. So if you as a reseller have your Skype for Business up and running and your client has too, one of the recommendations I would have is look at connecting your Office 365 users and customers together into your own Skype for Business. So this will show them the benefits, allow them to make potentially have quick conversations with you, share files, do all that sort of stuff. So certainly encourage you to connect up to your customers with external using Skype for Business, as well as your peers. And the final option, which again is enabled by default, is the ability to connect to consumer Skype. So if you have a customer who's using Skype for Business and they want to connect to other users, other customers, other vendors maybe who are using just the ordinary version of Skype, then they can certainly do that as well by default. And the third option, which is an add-in, you can then add in your dial-in conferencing provider. So this means that anybody with access to a phone can dial into a Skype meeting like we currently have the facility here. Now, if you go to add a contact, you'll see that one of the options here is the option to look through the Skype directory. So obviously that's looking through the consumer version of the Skype directory. You'll see that I've typed in my Skype ID there, just director_CIA, and it's then added, basically found that user. I can then right mouse click on that Skype user, add them into my contacts. The Skype user will have to accept that connection. Once they do, then you don't need to have obviously Skype Consumer and Skype for Business on the desktop. You can certainly use the one product to make those connections and do a lot of conference calling, which is a really handy feature. So some of the features of Skype for Business are, obviously we talked about presence. So that means that you can determine whether users are available, whether they're away from their desk, that sort of thing. You can also manually set your presence. So it's very handy in many organizations that if you want to concentrate or you want to spend the morning doing a certain amount of work, you can set your status to being busy or do not disturb. The presence also allows you to filter which contacts can get access to you. So if you set it to busy, then a certain subset of users can interrupt you. If you then set it to do not disturb, another smaller group of users may be able to make contact with you. So very, very powerful in the way that it can filter and control how people have access to you and let others know in the organization what your status is. We've obviously got messaging and chat. Where messaging and chat can be handy is potentially save sending an email or having to yell across the room. Another handy situation I've seen that used in is if you're in maybe a common area and you hear that someone's on the phone talking to a customer and maybe giving them the wrong information, you can initiate a chat with that person on the phone and they can answer the question or be given the appropriate information. So again, used correctly can be very powerful in a team environment. Again, look at messaging to reduce the overhead of things like email. Video calling, one of the most powerful ways to improve collaboration is to turn on the camera and smile for the birdie. Lots of customers like to see that. You can get a lot of interaction, a lot more communication, obviously using a video setting. Most machines these days certainly have a video capability that you can then broadcast out. Also very good for doing things like presentations if you want. Just be aware that video calling, make sure that the background is appropriately managed, and also don't forget that there are bandwidth considerations when you start broadcasting lots and lots of video. Conferencing, that's exactly what we're doing here, one-to-many. You can come into a Skype conference, you can be an attendee, you can listen to a presentation, it can be recorded. Again, think of a regular sales meeting, think of a regular catch-up, think of a regular tech meeting. Everybody doesn't necessarily have to be in the room. Again, those that can't make it, you can start the recording and then play that on demand. So a productivity method to make sure that people stay in contact. If you have your dial-in conferencing set up, bridge conferencing set as well, they can just dial in to get that information. So conferencing is a great way to keep everybody in touch. Also think about conferencing as a way potentially to do a company update. Maybe you're doing a sales update, maybe you're doing a presentation for customers. Training's another option here. Great tool to do that. You can share applications and the desktop. So what I'm doing here is I'm sharing my slideshow. I'm sharing a Windows 10 desktop, which is actually an RDP session into an Azure machine. And I can control whether I share an application or I share a whole desktop. So it gives you that functionality. So that means hopefully that when I share the application, which is just the RDP client, nothing else on any of my screens will display. So it gives you that control. You can also look at doing it for with desktop sharing to provide remote support potentially. The user can give remote access to you using remote sharing. So you can use it as a basic support style tool. Also whiteboard. Whiteboard's very handy, obviously, to throw up ideas, to map things out, to draw pictures. Recently did a conversation with another reseller explaining to them structure. I basically used my Surface, which luckily had a pen I could then draw on. That I went into the whiteboard, used the pen that came with the stylus that came with the Surface, and then I could draw an example of the structure, go through the points. So that's very handy. And at the end of the whiteboard session, I could then save that and reuse that. And of course, as we're doing here, we're recording the session. We then can convert that into MP4, upload it to YouTube, which is what the Academy does. But you can also choose to upload that to any video portal, such as the Office 365 video. So imagine if you were doing some training or you're doing occupational health and safety briefings, you could do those once a month, put them up in Office 365 video, and then you wouldn't have to redo those. So occupational health and safety portals are a very good example of do it once, use many times. Now, one of the big differences we start seeing here with Skype for Business is around the compliance. So if you aren't aware that every Skype for Business conversation gets recorded into a folder within the user's inbox called conversation history. Now, what that means is that that history is then available to be searched, to be used for e-discovery, to be managed for compliance, apart from the user being able to refer back to it as well. So this is, again, one of the major differences that we're seeing with the Skype for Business versus Skype consumer product. Now, with that said, you'd be surprised at how important security and compliance management is for businesses. So they want to know what users are saying on Skype. They want to make sure they're not doing the wrong thing, sending corporate IP out the organization. They want to track how many conversations they're having, how much time they're spending doing this sort of thing. So again, this is where the benefits of the Office 365 environment give you that to have centralized reporting, centralized management, centralized control over each individual client, which you generally can't do with consumer Skype. So that's why it is a very, very important and relevant business tool to use. You may not also be aware that Skype for Business has a web scheduler, so you can schedule a meeting directly in your Outlook once the appropriate software has been installed, but you can do that on the web without the need to have a client. So if you go to https://shed.link.com, you'll have to log in with your Office 365 credentials. Once you do that, you'll be then taken to the web scheduler where you can then go in and schedule a new web conference, time, date, who you invite to the meeting, and then once that has been saved, that will give you a URL and any dial-in details, and you can take that, copy that, and send that in an email. Any conference that you book in Outlook will appear in your web scheduler, but it doesn't work the other way. So the web scheduler conferences basically don't push back down to Outlook at this stage. So, but if you do certainly make a conference booking in Outlook on your desktop, that will appear in the web scheduler to let you know, so you don't overwrite what may already be there. But again, a great demo to show people is the ability to not only attend meetings in a browser, but also to be able to schedule meetings in a browser. So a handy way to look at doing this is if you get, for example, a support request or the client wants to see something, you can just pop into a web browser wherever you are, any machine, schedule a conference, send them the details, and then you can start a conference straight away. So it gives you that flexibility, and that is also very important for the mobility of many clients to be able to do that on the run. Now, I think the most exciting thing about Skype for Business is what we're likely to see in the very, very near future. If you haven't seen it already, have a look at the URL skypepreview.com. What we're going to see is we're going to see the ability to do meeting broadcasts. So there's a YouTube video there I certainly recommend you have a look at from the Garage series with Jeremy Chapman. That will give you an idea of what we're talking about meeting broadcasts. So meeting broadcasts mean the ability to broadcast to tens of thousands of users, to use multiple cameras, to control all that from the Skype console. It also allows you to do things like the Bing trends, which means you can integrate the ability to get interactions, see how users are engaged with your content. And the final integration piece that it brings into a meeting is a Yammer conversation. So rather than having a chat conversation, which we've got in this window, which is then kept in an email inbox, you can then integrate a Yammer conversation. So that means that typically the Yammer conversation can continue well after the meeting has completed. So meeting broadcast is now available in all regions, or in preview is available in all regions. So you can go to skypepreview.com and sign up for that today and try that out. The other option now is around the PSTN conferencing and the cloud PBX. Now, what that means is at the moment we obviously have to add third-party dial-in providers that bridge into Skype for Business. Now, Microsoft is working on bringing that or integrating that functionality directly into Skype for Business. So if you do sign up for that preview, which at the moment is typically US only based, you'll see that when you go into your Skype for Business Admin Center, you now get the Microsoft Bridge that you can now go in and configure. So the long-term plan for Microsoft obviously is the ability for users to be able to use Skype for Business as their primary connectivity means, that they can then connect to users over the internet, but they can also dial out to normal landlines. So look out for the complete cloud PBX system coming from Microsoft integrated into Office 365. The timeline that I have read for that is hopefully we should see this released in GA in early 2016, so it's not very far away. One of the partners that are mentioned in bringing this is Telstra. So again, there is a move to bring it to a place like Australia as well. So again, have a look at that, see what features and functionality it's bringing, have a consideration in that regard when you're looking at potentially third-party products as well that may do cloud PBX. What it's going to give obviously is the major advantage of integration with all the Office 365 features. So think of the ability to have your Skype for Business on your phone, and then you may start a meeting. You can then invite somebody else in. They can come in directly. They would then be able to see the presentation on their phone. They'd be able to set their presence. So again, the full unified communication suite is a very powerful addition to Office 365 features, and is something that will be a big part of the Microsoft strategy going forward. Okay, so with that said, let me show you another feature here. So what I can do obviously in my Skype for Business here is jump across between different presentable content. So you've been looking at a PowerPoint slide that I have uploaded. Hopefully you can now see a desktop machine via RDP on my system. Now I've logged in here as an Office 365 admin. Now obviously to get to the Skype for Business admin, we need to click on the admin tab. Once we do that, if we scroll down the left-hand side here down the bottom, you'll see that there is a Skype for Business admin option. This will take us to the Skype for Business admin center. So we get a dashboard here showing our conversations, ID, those sort of things. We can go in and, for example, if we select an individual user, so this shows me the summary here on the right-hand side. But if I go in and edit that user, you'll see that I can control whether they have audio and HD, whether I just want them to have audio, whether they're allowed to do anonymous dial outs, whether they can record their conversations. You'll see that I can control their external communications, as I mentioned. So individually, you can determine whether the user can connect to external consumer Skype and external Skype for Business. And again, if you have dial-in conferencing configured, you can certainly do that. The organization here is your global settings. Okay, so as I mentioned here, the major point that you need to consider, or which is enabled by default, is the external access, which I showed in the slide. So you'll see here in the pull down menu, I can turn it off completely. I can only allow it for certain domains, and I can, for example, here configure the public IM connectivity. Okay, so this means if I turn this off, that means that no users will be able to connect to Skype consumer users. I can configure my dial-in conference settings. Okay, I just need to go in and put in a provider, do those sort of things. I can then also customize my meeting invitation. So I can put in a logo, a different help URL, a legal URL, also some footer text. And when I send an invite out, it's nice and branded for my organization. Okay, so there's some connectivity tools that you can also look at there. Now, what I mentioned is that apart from things like search and compliance, one of the other abilities that Skype for Business gives you is, for example, the reports. So you'll see that in the reports area here, we have reports for active users, the audio and video minutes used, the user activities. So we can track basically what they're doing in each location. Okay, so a very handy thing that brings all of that together, answers a lot of admin style questions. Now, typically what we do is we install the Skype for Business client on our desktop. This comes, as I mentioned, with typically with the Office 2013. So all I need to do is log in with a suitable Office 365 enabled licensed user. That should then connect to my server. Okay, so let me just click no for that. And I've already logged in before, and you'll see that I've already got that up and running. Now, if I want to find someone here, what I can do is I know that there is an internal user here, right, called Martin Shaw. Okay, so you currently see that his status is set to away. So what I'm going to do is right mouse click on him, and I'm going to add him to other contacts. Now, if I move my mouse on that contact, you'll see that his status has now changed. So appreciate that it is a little bit difficult to do Skype to Skype demos with running through another Skype meeting, but we'll give it our best here. So if I initiate a chat from Martin here, you'll see that it pops up here, and all I need to do is accept it, and off we go. So we can now start having a chat between us. Now, of course, what we can then do is we could then perhaps, if I want, go back to Martin over here and maybe present my desktop. So hopefully this will come through when it fires up. And then what I'll be able to do is accept that and see the desktop. You'll see that I can also turn on the video. I can, example here, add additional people. So I can add additional people to the meeting. So it's really as simple as that. Now, I can go in here and I can, for example, present my desktop, present different programs, as I mentioned, that I'm running at the moment, and I can present a PowerPoint file. So basically, I can go in here and upload a PowerPoint file, okay, and that would then present it much like I'm doing at the moment. But why would you do that? The reason that you do that is that by uploading a PowerPoint to Skype for Business, it optimizes the display for each user on the call. So some users have different screen resolutions. If you present it from your desktop might be very large, and users have to scroll left and right to see what's going on. So that's why if you present a PowerPoint file, upload it, then it optimizes it for every individual user. You can see that I can add attachments. I can all share individual notes. And if I go into more here, you'll see that I can now initiate a whiteboard, and that would then basically kick off a whiteboard in which I could, then go in and start scribbling and doing all that sort of stuff. And then hopefully over on my other screen here. Okay, so let me just accept all the OKs here. Okay, and then go to the whiteboard, and then we can, let me bring up the other desktop just to show you that it does work. So there's my other Windows 10 machine over here. So if, for example, I go over here and maybe push the start menu, we should see the, hopefully, start menu appear via the magic of connectivity here. So there it is. Again, just appreciate this is a little bit difficult to do a Skype to Skype demo inside Skype. So again, we can pop between all our managed content. So I can manage my individual content. I can move backwards and forwards between it, present it now. I can change the permissions to determine who's got access to it. So again, nice and easy to work with. And then as you see down here in the corner, I can then record the meeting. And if I've got rights to do that, and in this case, I'm going to end the meeting. All right, and once I've ended that meeting, if I go into my Outlook, okay, and go into my mail, you'll see that I have a conversation history folder here, and this is the conversation that I just had here. You'll see the status is set. So remember that it does keep all that. If I go into my calendar, you'll see that I can create a new Skype meeting. There is a new button up there. I send this to Martin Shaw, for example. Okay. All right, and you'll see that it has already put in the Skype details. It's put in the correct URL. I'm ready to go. Send that off, and I need to put a subject in here. So let me just pop that in and send that. Oh, can't spell meeting. Okay, so that's good to go, and if I double click on there, I can add more information, but importantly, it's got all my Skype details in there, and I can join that directly. So again, that's one of the benefits of Plan 2. All right, and as I mentioned, the other thing we've got here is the web scheduler. So here's our web scheduler here. You'll see that I've got a list of the meetings here. All right, so that one hasn't come through as yet and updated. So, but you'll see I can go in here, create a new meeting, put in all the details, determine who connects to my meeting. And as you can see here now, it's updating with that new meeting content that I just added from my Outlook. I can go in and edit that. You'll see that this gives me the info for the meeting. This is the URL that I just click on. I can export that to an iCal and then ship that off in an email to others if I so choose that. Now, from a user's point of view, typically the software you install, you will find by going to the cog, go to Office 365 settings. In the settings, you will find an option here to select software. Okay, so in here, you'll see that I have my Office software. So this is an E3 SKU, which includes the Skype for Business client as part of my desktop software. But there is also, for example, a Skype for Business. Okay, so if you didn't have Office, for example, but you had a Skype for Business license, you would find in the Skype for Business area the appropriate software, the single client to download and use. But as I said, 9 times out of 10, most users are going to have the full Office suite, and they'll have Skype for Business as part of that suite. So really, that's a quick overview of the desktop side of things. Let me just go back to my slides. So again, I'm just managing my presentable content. I'm going to flick back to the slides that I have already been presenting. Okay, so it makes it nice and easy to work with, as you see. So the best practices to round off is, bottom line is, if you're not using Skype for Business, you should be. No brainer in my opinion. Put it in, start using it within your own business to get familiar with it. Have a look at the mobile client options. It's really very impressive to be able to have conversations, meetings, video, VoIP calls directly using the mobile client. Something that attracts, is very impressive to clients. I would be suggesting that you have a look at replacing instances of Skype with Skype for Business, both internally and also with clients. Don't forget that you get the connectivity between Skype for Business and consumer Skype. So there really isn't a lot of reasons to keep using consumer Skype inside a business, I believe. And I would suggest you connect up with your other peers, vendors, clients, anybody else who has a Skype for Business address. So I will give you my account. So if you wish to connect up with me using Skype for Business, my Skype for Business account is admin@ciaops365.com. Just add me to your contact list and feel free to ping me with questions or test out or demo or whatever. Happy to connect with you using the tool. And again, I think that's a really good option that everybody should be using to promote connectivity, at least between each other. So the takeaways for the session are Skype for Business has a very low impact, which means that you can install that within a client's environment without generally upsetting any other of their software, without having to do DirSync, without having to migrate their emails. It's basically a standalone app. So put in a 30-day trial or put in some of your licenses from your IUR. Give clients, show them what it does. There is very low impact in implementing Skype for Business within a customer's organization. You'd be surprised at how many businesses have never used messaging, let alone business messaging. Most people perhaps have used Skype or some other connectivity, but again, you can take the benefits of that and implement inside a business, give all the control and the management, plus all the benefits that the product does provide. But again, do it in a unified environment, doing it with a plan, doing it with a managed thing, and make some revenue out of it. Also, record the meetings as we do here. We record them and we upload them to YouTube, but the way to start integrating and breaking out from Skype for Business is to record your Skype for Business and post it into Office 365 video. Okay, so you can use the Office 365 video, which is part of the Office 365 package, and then post the recordings up to there so that they're always available for the future. You can run sessions like this one for your prospects and clients. What about doing a monthly update where you do a broadcast, a presentation of what's happening at your business or the latest updates in software or meet this new employee or tips and tricks or all that sort of stuff. Record it once, have people attend and ask questions as they do here, and then make that video available in your newsletter, on your YouTube channel. It's really a no-brainer. So again, plenty of stuff you can record and utilize within your business and also as a marketing tool. I would be looking to sell Skype for Business as a productivity tool. Okay, well, how does it make businesses more productive? It does that by reducing the amount of emails. The amount of yes, no, thank you, what about this, what about that emails is quite significant. If that could be done by instant messaging, and remember that those conversations still end up in email, but not in the inbox, that's certainly a way to reduce the email load. One of the big things a lot of organizations are looking to get that work-life balance is to promote the ability to do remote working. So users who need to work from home remotely, want the convenience, parents managing kids, whatever, Skype for Business allows them to do that, allows them to remain connected to others within their organization, to make easy connection, ask questions, be involved, share desktops, still be part of the office, no matter where they are in the world. So again, remote working is a big option, big opportunity that you can promote. Obviously, there is also the cost savings you can look at. So if you connect it to cloud PBX systems, conferencing, you can reduce the cost spent on landlines and mobile calls. So rather than having to spend hours and hours describing something on the screen on a mobile phone, maybe it's easy just to pop in and do that on a screen sharing environment. So again, look at it to reduce those sort of call costs as well. Some resources there. Remember that the slide deck will be available after the event directly from Dicker, but all the links I have mentioned there are available. I certainly recommend you have a look and work through those if you want more information. Now I will throw out to my next little piece of Skype for Business integration, which is our interactive poll. So appreciate if you could just go in and nominate which state that you are calling in from. Helps us understand, or helps Dicker understand where people are calling from, what we need to do to obviously push it towards that environment. So again, just take a moment or two. Really appreciate you putting that information in. Does provide a lot of benefit to us to know who is actually on that call. Okay, so hopefully it looks all good. Everybody's on there. Thank you very much for that. I'll swap back to the slides now. Okay, and again, thank you for providing that information. And to finish off, here's our Dicker Data contacts if you need to contact them individually. And don't forget to send to any questions to microsoft.sales@dickerdata.com.au. Upcoming webinars next week will be in the Azure Open Calculator, then managing Office 365 identities, then some SharePoint admin, and then we'll dive into some Delve and groups. Remember that if you want to contact me, provide any feedback, learn about what I do, you can do that by emailing me, director@ciaops.com, but certainly encourage you to use the Skype for Business, which is admin@ciaops365.com. And with that, Thank you very much for attending, and I'll stop the recording.